In February 2018, my life took an unexpected turn. While sifting through the mail, I stumbled upon a revelation that shattered my world. My wife, Carla, was having an affair. We had been married for 3.5 years, and I had never suspected a thing. My contract job required occasional travel, but I mostly worked from home, while Carla was the director of a technical sales firm. Despite our busy schedules, I believed we had a good marriage, although it had become strained over the past year. 5 years ago, I met Carla at a mutual friend's barbecue. There was an instant chemistry between us, and I felt lucky to be with such a beautiful and articulate woman. Our relationship moved quickly, and after dating for 8 months, we got married and moved into a spacious apartment while saving for a house. The first 3 years of our marriage were blissful. However, things started to change. Carla began picking fights over trivial matters, and her work hours grew increasingly late. Whenever I raised concerns about her long hours and frequent work outings, she would become defensive and angry, insisting it was necessary for her career advancement. She argued that my occasional work trips meant I had no right to question her. Despite my efforts to reduce my travel, our arguments never found resolution. In hindsight, I was completely oblivious to Carla's affair. Her late work hours and the decline in our intimate life seemed like typical work-related exhaustion. My self-esteem suffered from her frequent rejections, but I dismissed them as stress from her demanding job. As the months went by, Carla's late hours and evening work engagements became more frequent. My suspicions began to grow, especially after I found one of her bras under the front seat of her car. It made me sick to my stomach, but I tried to rationalize it away. I didn't confront her immediately, hoping I was wrong, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Determined to uncover the truth, I started to piece together the clues. I decided to give Carla more attention, hoping to rekindle our connection. One Friday evening, I prepared a romantic dinner, complete with candles and a bottle of wine. But when Carla came home, she barely acknowledged my efforts and informed me she had plans to meet her coworkers. As she showered, preparing to leave, I snapped. While she was getting ready, I placed my company phone in her car to track her movements. When she left, I watched her location on my phone, confirming my worst fears. She met a man at a bar and then went to a hotel with him. Overwhelmed with rage and sorrow, I drove out of town seeking solace. I found a quiet bar and poured my heart out to a sympathetic bartender and a stranger named Ray. Ray's words of encouragement helped me see that I had a choice: to let this affair destroy me or to take control of my life and move forward. I returned home with a plan. Over the next few weeks, I quietly moved my belongings to a trailer on Ray's property. The trailer represented a new beginning, away from the betrayal and heartache. As I settled into my new life, I prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation with Carla, knowing that my journey to self-rediscovery had just begun. The day I discovered Carla's affair was a turning point in my life. The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of her with another man. As we went about our weekend, the tension between us was palpable. Carla acted as if everything was normal, but I knew our marriage was crumbling. On Monday, I decided to confront her. That evening, as she arrived home from work, I asked her to sit down. My heart was pounding and I could barely contain my anger and hurt. "Carla," I began, "I need to ask you something important. Are you having an affair?" She looked startled, but quickly regained her composure. "What? Why would you even ask that?" she responded, her voice tinged with defensiveness. "I have my reasons," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I found your bra under the seat of your car, and I've noticed your late hours and constant work outings. Just tell me the truth." Carla's face turned pale. She stammered, I don't know what you're talking about. You're being ridiculous." I could feel the rage boiling inside me. "Don't lie to me, Carla. I followed you last week. I saw you with him. I know about the hotel." Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of guilt, but she quickly masked it with anger. "You're being paranoid. You're just trying to find an excuse for your failures." I stood up, my fists clenched. "I'm done, Carla. I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." She stared at me, shocked. "You're what? You can't just leave." "I already have," I said, my voice cold. I've moved most of my things out. I'll be gone by the end of the week. Carla's expression changed from anger to desperation. Please, we can work this out. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I shook my head. You destroyed our marriage the moment you stepped out on me. There is no fixing this. I'm done. I spent the next few days finalizing my move. Each evening, I returned to our apartment only to pack more of my belongings. Carla tried to engage me in conversations, pleading for another chance, but I refused to be swayed. My mind was made up. On Friday, as she prepared for another so-called work outing, I packed the last of my things. This is it, I told her. I'm leaving for good. Tears streamed down her face as she tried to stop me. Please, Paul, don't go. We can go to counseling. We can make this work. But I had already closed off my heart to her. Goodbye, Carla, I said, and walked out the door. I drove to Ray's property, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. The trailer was my new home, a place where I could start over and heal. Over the next few weeks, I settled into my new routine. Ray and his friends welcomed me into their circle, providing the support and camaraderie I desperately needed. Carla continued to call and text, but I ignored her. I needed to distance myself from the pain she had caused. The betrayal cut deep, but I was determined to rebuild my life without her. One evening, while sharing a drink with Ray at the local bar, I confided in him about my plans. I want to move on, Ray. I want to find peace and happiness again. Ray nodded, his eyes full of understanding. You will, Paul. It won't be easy, but you've taken the first step. Just keep moving forward. With Ray's encouragement, I began to see a future beyond the betrayal. I started exploring the beautiful surroundings, finding solace in nature. I took up running again, feeling my strength and confidence slowly returning. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew one thing for sure. I was not going to let Carla's betrayal define me. I was ready to reclaim my life, one step at a time. As the weeks went by, I continued to settle into my new life in the trailer. Each day brought a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a growing sense of liberation. I found solace in my new routines, slowly piecing myself back together. Ray became a steadfast friend, offering wisdom and support. He introduced me to his circle of friends, a group of down-to-earth individuals who welcomed me with open arms. Their kindness and camaraderie were a balm to my wounded soul. One evening, Ray invited me to a barbecue at his place. It was a lively gathering, filled with laughter and good food. I met a woman named Emily, a warm and spirited artist who lived nearby. We struck up a conversation, and for the first time in months, I felt a genuine connection with someone. As Emily and I chatted, I found myself opening up about my past. She listened with empathy, sharing her own stories of heartbreak and healing. There was a comfort in her presence, a sense of understanding that was deeply soothing. Over the next few weeks, Emily and I began spending more time together. We explored the hiking trails around Ray's property, went for long walks, and talked about everything under the sun. Her vibrant energy and positive outlook were infectious, and I felt a spark of hope igniting within me. Meanwhile, Carla's attempts to reach me grew more desperate. She sent a barrage of texts and voicemails, ranging from pleas for forgiveness to angry accusations. I ignored them all, knowing that engaging with her would only reopen old wounds. One Saturday morning, as I sipped coffee on the porch of my trailer, I received an unexpected visitor. It was Carla. She stood at the edge of the property, looking hesitant and vulnerable. "Paul," she called out, her voice wavering, "can we talk?" I felt a surge of anger, but also a pang of curiosity. Taking a deep breath, I walked over to her. "What do you want, Carla?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I just want to explain. I need you to understand." I crossed my arms, trying to maintain my composure. "There's nothing to explain. You cheated. You lied. End of story." Carla shook her head. "Please, Paul, just hear me out. I made a terrible mistake and I regret it every single day. I was under a lot of pressure at work, and I let myself be swept up in something I didn't even understand. It was wrong, and I'm sorry." Her words stirred a mix of emotions within me. Part of me wanted to believe her, to find closure in her apology. But another part of me was still deeply wounded, wary of reopening the painful chapter we had closed. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I said finally, my voice heavy with emotion. Carla stepped closer, her expression earnest. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a chance to make things right. We can go to counseling and work through this together. Please, Paul, just give us a chance." I looked away, the weight of her words pressing down on me. "I need time, Carla. I need space to figure things out." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I'll wait for as long as it takes. Just know that I love you and I'm truly sorry." As she walked away, I felt a storm of conflicting emotions. Part of me longed for the life we once had, but another part knew that rebuilding our relationship would be an immense challenge. In the days that followed, I threw myself into my new life with renewed determination. I spent more time with Emily, finding joy in our growing friendship. She became a source of strength and encouragement, reminding me that I had the power to shape my future. One evening, as Emily and I watched the sunset from a hill overlooking Ray's property, she turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Paul, you have to do what's right for you. Whether that's moving forward without Carla or giving her another chance, you need to follow your heart." Her words resonated deeply. I realized that my healing journey wasn't just about escaping the past. It was about making choices that honored my well-being and happiness. With Emily's support, I began to see a future that was no longer defined by betrayal and heartache. It was a future filled with possibility, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. As summer turned to fall, the leaves on the trees surrounding Ray's property transformed into a vibrant tapestry of reds and golds. My life, too, was transforming. Each day brought me closer to a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Emily and I grew even closer, our bond deepening with each shared experience. We continued to explore the trails, have long, heartfelt conversations, and enjoy the simple pleasures of life in the countryside. It was during one of these conversations that Emily asked a question that had been on my mind for weeks. "Paul, have you decided what you're going to do about Carla?" she asked gently, her eyes filled with concern. I sighed, looking out at the landscape. "I've been thinking about it a lot. Part of me feels like I owe it to myself to move on completely, to let go of the past and start fresh. But another part of me wonders if I should at least hear her out, try to find some closure." Emily nodded, understanding. "It's a difficult decision, but whatever you choose, make sure it's what's best for you. You deserve happiness, Paul." A few days later, I received an email from Carla. She had finally accepted that our relationship might be over, but she desperately wanted to meet one last time to talk things through. After much contemplation, I agreed. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in a nearby town. On the day of our meeting, I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. As I walked into the cafe, I spotted Carla at a corner table, looking as nervous as I felt. Taking a deep breath, I approached her. "Paul," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for any sign of forgiveness. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, sitting down across from her. "Let's get this over with." Carla took a deep breath. "I know I've hurt you more than words can express, and for that I'm truly sorry. The affair, it was the biggest mistake of my life. I was under immense pressure at work, feeling overwhelmed and lost. I let myself be swept away by someone who seemed to understand my struggles. But it was all a lie. I regret it every single day." Her words hit me hard. Hearing her admit her wrongdoing so plainly brought a mix of anger and sorrow to the surface. "Why didn't you come to me?" I asked, my voice betraying my pain. "Why didn't you tell me how you were feeling?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I don't know, Paul. I was scared. I didn't want to burden you with my problems, and I didn't realize how far I'd strayed until it was too late." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "I followed you that night, you know. I saw you with him. It broke me, Carla. It broke everything we had." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was a fool. I lost sight of what truly mattered." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her confession hanging between us. Finally, she looked up, her eyes full of tears. her eyes red and swollen. "Paul, I know it's too late to fix what I've done, but I want you to know that I will always love you and I will always regret what I did. If there's any chance, any at all, that we could start over, I would do anything to make it right." Her words lingered in the air. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her another chance, but another part of me knew that the trust between us had been irreparably damaged. "I appreciate your honesty, Carla," I said finally, "but I don't think I can ever go back. The trust is gone, and without it we have nothing." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I needed to tell you how sorry I am. I needed you to know that I never stopped loving you." We parted ways that day with a heavy sense of finality. As I drove back to the trailer, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. I had faced my past, and now it was time to truly move forward. That evening, I met Emily at our favorite spot on the hill. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, I told her about my meeting with Carla. She listened quietly, her presence a comforting balm to my wounded heart. "I'm proud of you, Paul," she said softly. "You did what you needed to do. Now it's time to focus on your future." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. The chapter with Carla was finally closed, and a new one was ready to begin. With Emily by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. The weeks following my final meeting with Carla were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a mixture of sadness and relief, a heavy weight lifting off my shoulders as I began to fully accept that our relationship was over. I channeled my energy into building a new life, focusing on the things that brought me joy and fulfillment. Emily was a constant source of support during this time. Our bond continued to grow, and I found myself looking forward to our adventures together. One crisp autumn afternoon, we decided to take a hike up one of the more challenging trails near Ray's property. The air was fresh and invigorating, and the vibrant colors of the changing leaves created a breathtaking backdrop. As we reached the summit, we sat down to catch our breath and take in the stunning view. Emily turned to me with a smile. "You've come a long way, Paul. I'm proud of you." I smiled back, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Emily. You've been my rock through all of this." She blushed slightly and looked out at the horizon. "I'm glad I could be here for you. You deserve happiness, Paul. Don't ever forget that." Her words resonated deeply with me. For the first time in a long while, I felt a genuine sense of hope for the future. I knew that my journey was far from over, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. In the days that followed, I threw myself into new projects and hobbies. I helped Ray with various tasks around his property, and we even started a small renovation on the trailer to make it more comfortable. The work was physically demanding but immensely satisfying, and it kept my mind occupied. Emily and I continued to spend time together, our relationship blossoming into something truly special. We went on more hikes, explored nearby towns, and enjoyed quiet evenings by the fire. Her presence brought a sense of calm and stability to my life, and I found myself falling for her more each day. One evening, as we sat by the fire, Emily turned to me with a serious expression. "Paul, I need to ask you something." I looked at her, slightly apprehensive. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "What do you see for your future? What do you want?" I paused, considering her question. "I want to be happy, Emily. I want to build a life that's fulfilling and meaningful. And I want to be with someone who truly cares about me." She smiled, a soft, understanding look in her eyes. "I care about you, Paul, more than you know." I reached out and took her hand. "I care about you too, Emily. You've been my guiding light through all of this. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I want you to be a part of it." Her eyes filled with tears of happiness, and she squeezed my hand. "I'd love that, Paul. I really would." As we sat there, hand in hand, watching the fire dance in the cool night air, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. For the first time since discovering Carla's betrayal, I truly believed that everything would be all right. Meanwhile, Carla's texts and calls had dwindled to almost nothing. She seemed to have accepted that our relationship was over, and I was grateful for the silence. It allowed me to fully focus on my new life without the constant reminder of my past. Ray noticed the positive changes in me as well. One day, as we were working on the trailer, he clapped me on the back. "You're looking good, Paul. Happier than I've seen you in a long time." I grinned at him, feeling a genuine sense of gratitude. "Thanks, Ray. I owe a lot of that to you. You gave me a place to heal and start over." He waved off my thanks with a chuckle. "Just doing what any friend would do, but it's you who did the hard work, Paul. You chose to move forward, and that's what matters." His words stayed with me as I continued to rebuild my life. Each day brought new challenges and triumphs, and I embraced them all with a renewed sense of purpose. Emily and I decided to take a weekend trip to a nearby city to explore and have some fun. It was a welcome break from the routine, and we enjoyed every moment of it. From visiting art galleries to trying new restaurants, the trip was filled with laughter and joy. On our last night in the city, we found a quiet rooftop bar and watched the sunset together. Emily rested her head on my shoulder, and I felt a profound sense of happiness. "This has been perfect," I whispered. She smiled up at me. "It has. I'm so glad we did this." As the city lights began to twinkle below us, I realized that I was ready to fully embrace this new chapter of my life. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I was free to move forward, to create a future filled with love and happiness. Returning to Ray's property, I felt a renewed sense of energy and determination. Emily and I continued to build our relationship, finding joy in the simple moments we shared. And with each passing day, I grew more confident in the path I had chosen. The journey had been long and difficult, but I had emerged stronger and wiser. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them, knowing that I had the support of true friends and the love of a remarkable woman. As the first snowflakes of winter began to fall, I looked out over the landscape with a sense of gratitude and hope. My life had been shattered, but from the broken pieces, I had built something beautiful, and for the first time in a long time, I truly believed that the best was yet to come. Winter arrived in full force, blanketing the landscape around Ray's property in a serene layer of snow. The crisp air and the quiet beauty of the season reflected the calm I felt inside. My journey through betrayal and heartache led me to a place of peace and hope. Emily and I continued to grow closer, and our relationship blossomed into something truly special. We spent the holidays together, sharing laughter and creating new memories. The warmth of our connection was a stark contrast to the cold outside, and it filled me with a deep sense of contentment. As the new year approached, I found myself reflecting on the past 12 months. The transformation in my life was profound. I had gone from the depths of despair to a place of healing and renewal. My new life, while different from what I had imagined, was full of promise. One evening, as we sat by the fire in Ray's cozy living room, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Paul, have you thought about what you want to do next? I mean, long term?" I looked at her, realizing that she had become a central part of my plans. "I have," I said, squeezing her hand. "I want to continue building this life we've started together. I love it here, and I want to see where our journey takes us." She smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. "I feel the same way. I think we found something really special." The days grew longer, and the snow began to melt, giving way to the first signs of spring. The changing seasons mirrored the transformation in my own life as I embraced new beginnings with an open heart. One weekend, Ray and I worked on some improvements to the trailer, preparing it for the warmer months ahead. As we finished up for the day, he looked at me with a satisfied grin. "You've done good, Paul. I'm proud of you." I nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude. "Thanks, Ray. I couldn't have done it without your help." He waved off my thanks. "You had the strength all along. You just needed a little push." As spring blossomed into summer, Emily and I decided to take a trip to visit my family. It had been a while since I had seen them, and I felt ready to reconnect and share the changes in my life. The trip was a success, filled with warmth and acceptance. My family welcomed Emily with open arms, and I felt a renewed sense of belonging. Returning home, we settled back into our routine, enjoying the simple pleasures of life in the countryside. One sunny afternoon, while hiking a familiar trail, Emily turned to me with a look of excitement. "Paul, I have an idea." I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What is it?" She smiled brightly. "Let's build a little garden. We can grow our vegetables and flowers. It could be a fun project for us." I grinned, loving the idea. "That sounds perfect. Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, we planned and planted our garden, working side by side. The project brought us even closer, and watching the first sprouts emerge was incredibly rewarding. It felt symbolic of the new life we were nurturing together. As summer turned to fall, our garden flourished, and our relationship continued to thrive. We celebrated each milestone, big and small, and looked forward to the future with optimism. One crisp autumn evening, as we sat on the porch of the trailer, Emily took my hand. "Paul, there's something I want to tell you." I looked at her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "I love you, Paul. I love the life we've built together, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." My heart swelled with emotion. "I love you too, Emily. More than I can express. You've brought so much joy and meaning into my life." We embraced, feeling the warmth of our connection. At that moment, I knew that I had truly moved on from the pain of the past. I had found a love that was genuine and pure, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. The following months were filled with happiness and contentment. Emily and I continued to nurture our garden, enjoy the beauty of the changing seasons, and dream about the life we wanted to build together. Carla's presence in my life had faded to a distant memory. I no longer received texts or calls from her, and the wounds she had inflicted had finally healed. I felt a sense of closure and peace, knowing that I had made the right choices for my well-being. As winter approached again, I looked back on the past year with deep gratitude. The journey had been challenging but led me to a place of true happiness. I learned the importance of resilience, the value of true friendship, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Emily and I stood on the porch, watching the season's first snowflakes drift down. She leaned into me, her warmth a comforting presence against the chill. "Here's to new beginnings," she said softly. I smiled, feeling a profound sense of contentment. "To new beginnings," I echoed. At that moment, I knew that the future held endless possibilities. With Emily by my side and the support of true friends, I was ready to embrace whatever came next. My journey of self-discovery led me to a place of peace, love, and fulfillment, and I was excited to see what the next chapter of my life would bring.